sometimes our intent is to watch a movie right away, but then it takes us like 10 million years to do it. And that's what happened with this little picture we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Ready Player One. Hit that music!
Movies, music, story times, all kinds of shit for you. Everything goes in fast and out from
So as always, we're fashionably late to a fucking movie that premiered like 10 billion years ago.
Really late this time.
But I think it's still something worth talking about. So obviously this is more a discussion than the review, but we will be talking about our thoughts on it because we didn't speak about it for about a week. In fact, it was deadly worrying silence.
Some might say we were about to kill each other.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, we did watch Ready Player One at long last. A little overdue on that. There was okay. Let's start this way. This go around. I know you're not huge on Steven Spielberg, so I know that was a point of contention, possible worry for you. Any other points of contention going into the picture before you saw it?
Spielberg, it was a big one because he's an old not only because it's Spielberg, but because it's an old geezer tackling stuff that old geezers usually make really cringy.
Yeah.
Like tech stuff, especially up-to-date tech stuff, is kind of like, ooh, geezers.
And video game movies in general, I think, also.
Yeah.
Like anybody who tackles them is like...
That's another thing. The insane amount of licenses in this was a little bit worrying. Though I was kind of curious about it. I didn't want to see it for that also. So that was kind of a twofer on the being worrying.
Catch-22 possibly?
I will say that the fact that kind of no one talked about it after it came out, other than saying it was good, was a little worrying. And from the trailers, I wasn't sold on the art style.
Yeah, I share all those worries. The Spielberg one, let me clear up. I like Spielberg. I like Spielberg a lot. I just think that he's not the Spielberg of the 80s, early 90s anymore. He's just not. In fact, that's not even a fucking opinion. That's a fact. He's not that Spielberg anymore. He can't do that type of movie very effectively anymore. Case in point, Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls and The Big Friendly Fucking Giant, they're not great. In fact, they suck.
Yeah.
He's not that old, magical, amazing movie Spielberg anymore. He's a much more grounded filmmaker now. He makes excellent dramas. Just excellent.
Some of that whimsy's gone.
Yeah, but that childhood-like whimsical nature of his movies, that's not what he does anymore. So when he comes back to that causes me worry. And apparently, it's okay to worry because fuck Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, man.
Yeah.
I broke my skull just to express how much I hated that shit. And BFG, of course, sucks. Dog dicks. I was going to say big dongs, but I'll go with dog dicks.
Yeah.
Hashtag bag of dog dicks, because that's exactly how many dog dicks that shit sucked. But yeah, visually from the trailers, I saw the same digital, weird, gauzy look that was present in the BFG and in Indiana Jones.
Someone taking some Vax and lathering it on that.
That digital matte painting look is horrible. It takes me out of the picture completely. I could have dealt with the crappiness of Crystal Skull had that look not been there. Had it looked like the other indie movies. That look! I hate it, man. Now, our good friend, Senor Spielbergo, he himself has expressed a hatred for that look. Nay, a sadness, because he, like his namesake, loves Steven Spielberg because Steven Spielberg loves himself. So there's that whole thing. But anyway, what I'm saying is that look worried me. And yes, of course, an old man tackling, video games. Any director tackling video games is kind of a big iffy spot. It hasn't come across very well. And to be that meta about it, to be that aware about it, even more so, I was like, ooh, this might just not work. But another point that worried me was that I had read the book, and I loved the book. It is absolutely wonderful. But one thing that I thought could benefit from Spielberg's involvement is that the book, at its core, beyond all the, facade and the overtures of fucking tech at its core is a human story. It's about the importance of friendship. It's about the importance of bonding, and it has a very anti-corporate message on top of that. But more than anything, it has a heart. And I thought that is what Spielberg can do exceptionally well, no matter what he's doing, except for the BFG and fucking Crystal Skull. But he can do that. He can still do that. Can he achieve it? That was my point of hope. Was there a point of hope for you before you went and saw the movie?
Yeah, I thought it looked interesting. The fact that the writer of the book was writing the screenplay and was like clearly into it was a big one. The fact that apparently Madballs were gonna be in it was kind of a big one for me, sadly. And I wanted to see Spartans on the big screen. So a lot of mine were a little bit superficial. I'm gonna be honest with you.
And
but they did pull,
And there is a lot of superficial things in this movie that, just by seeing those things, you might enjoy the movie. But, the frosting isn't the cake. The cake is the cake. And if the cake sucks, the frosting isn't going to cover that suck-ass cake. That's the analogy I'm going with. But it's a good one.
It makes
frosting
sense.
is delicious. But that fucking cake, if it's dry, throw that fucker out the window. So the question was, the frosting, we knew it was going to be at the very least the frosting of digital effects, we knew that was going to be at least visually cool. Mm-hmm. There was going to be some cool moments in this, visually speaking, actions-wise. The question is, was the cake dry or was it moist? I'm latching on to that analogy.
I don't know about you. I don't know what you think because, like we said, we didn't speak about this, but I thought it was pretty moist. I took a bite of that cake and I was like, "That's pretty good cake."
And you were like, "That's the cake.
That cake's it's pretty good."
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at how much of the book was retained on screen, because I knew that just by the nature of the book, I knew that there was going to be a lot of superficial changes.
Yeah.
So what was important to me was that the core structure of the book remained. And everything superficial can change because it's basically just cool moments in the book, cool frosting for the meat of it, for the
cake,
for that cake. What is it? Dough? I don't know what the fuck it is. Fucking flour? I don't know what the fuck. The point is, I can't let this analogy go. But anyway, yeah, man, I thought that the superficial qualities could be expended if they kept that core. Safe and sound.
Moist.
And they did, which is good. The question for me was, okay, they kept that alive, they kept the message alive, they amped up the corporate angle even, or the anti-corporate angle, I should say. Was the superficial shit numbing to me, or was it not?
Yeah, this is what I'm interested in because we have slightly different levels of numbness when it comes to some CG stuff. So yeah, I'm curious what you think about that.
And I say, yeah, and it's good to stress that this could potentially be numbing because of how much is on the screen. At one time, you see a bazillion licenses just popping up. Do they seem just like, expendable things on the screen, or are they essential to what's going on? All these questions ran through my mind. And when I finally saw the picture, I gotta say that about 97% of the time it worked. There was rarely a moment where I thought that's too much on this fucking screen. And even those few moments where I thought that's too much, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just kind of like, it'd be nicer to see something else than this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather see this other property. Or sometimes I felt like maybe it was a bit extraneous. Like, all right, yeah, I get it. Reference. It was too nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But those were so few times.
Yeah,
and
there actually was.
That's so surprising that's such a rare moment when it felt that way.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised with how, because they do explain why these things are there. And the explanation is good enough, and they don't really bring attention to it too much, at least not throughout the movie, that it doesn't seem ludicrous. It's just characters that are there.
Yeah.
Like, you'll see Tracer running around from Overwatch, but she's just a character. They don't stop to look at her and be like, look, this is from this game!
And I think that's super important. Had they pandered to that audience that way, this would have been a cringe fest, head to toe.
Yeah.
And
But
they don't.
The way they did it, I think, was actually really cool, especially if you know those licenses. Because early on, like for me, I'm a big Halo fan. To see that early battle with, I forgot the big dumb looking guy who ends up being a girl,
H.
battling, and then he has like a freaking assault rifle from Halo, but they don't bring attention to it. He just has it.
It's just there.
I was like, oh, that's cool. And throughout that, IROC has a gun, a really obscure reference to a game from EA, Shadows of the Damned, the skull gun. I was like, what the flip? That's a weird reference from this game that no one knows. So you could tell that some of the references were put there by actual fans. It wasn't just like, hey, look at this. We got the license.
Yeah, and a lot of, I'm sure tons of people worked on this vehicle, obviously, and a lot of contributions put in. But to read Ready Player One, you understand how much the writer himself
Likes that
has
stuff, yeah.
a handle on how to reference things, and that's exactly the way to do it. It's not bringing attention to them.
They're just there.
It's being there. It's being a natural part of them. And when attention is brought to them, it's brought to them in the right way, i.e., it builds a character, contributes to the character, etc. And I think he translated that onto the screen exceptionally well, and it also brought forth the idiosyncrasies of the gaming community without it being fucking cringy as shit. Which, again, I'm surprised that happened. That being said, in the book, there is much more of a dungeon crawl feeling to the quests, while the quests remain pretty much intact, there is one of the 3 quests for the keys that is completely new and different, and this shit blew my fucking gourd off. I knew that even if I hated this movie, which I didn't, that this fucking section...
I was curious what you were going to think about this one, because it could have gone either way.
Dude, my fucking nuts fell to the floor. I was that amazed. I don't know why my nuts would fucking fall. But, my jaw was somewhere else by that point. But this was the one dramatic quest change. The other 2 are pretty much sort of intact. This one was huge. And it was the Shining sequence. If you haven't seen the movie, during one of the quests that the characters go on into in this digital world, they are basically put through the grinder to a variety of video game standards and or movie heavy reference standards. The second quest is all centered on Kubrick's The Shining, and that was fucking badass. I mean, that's like just like a gobstopper moment. Like,
yeah,
that's like a Jurassic Park in the '90s moment. Like, holy shit!
And I at least for me, I didn't see the last trailer that they released, but at least for me, I don't think they ever showed it in the trailers. So it came off as like a complete surprise. I didn't freaking know this was gonna come, and when it came, I was like, "Oh shit!"
Now, aren't you glad that I made you see The Shining before?
Yeah, that is interesting. If I hadn't seen The Shining, I don't think this scene would have been as effective. But it was really well done.
Yeah,
like it starts just with them going through the hotel, and the recreation of the hotel was really well done. I don't know if they took shots, like actual footage from the movie.
I don't know what process it was, but it was amazing.
When they were walking down the stairs and it's got that kind of graininess, it looked like they had literally just taken the scene and put them in there.
Mm-hmm.
But then you realize that it's further than that because they're actually walking through scenes that aren't in The Shining. So you're like, how the hell did they make this shit? Now, CG obviously is the answer, but it does have that quality where you're like, oh, shit!
Yeah, it does. And I kind of don't want to know how they made it because it was that badass to me. I was like, holy shit.
It's rare in this era where we're surprised by an effect.
Yeah, and it was very pleasant to know that I didn't know this was in there.
Yeah.
Like you, and just by sheer coincidence, not too long ago, that I made you see The Shining, so that doubled the effect for you. And The Shining, of course, one of my favorite movies, and I was like, man, it was, but yeah, and just imagine that. I'm sure Joe Schmo over there and Sally Mae over there had different reactions to different things in the movie. For me, it was this section. And don't get me wrong, a lot of stuff in the movie was cool, but for me, it was this I was just like, like literally mind fucking blown. I was like, shit, this is awesome. And this is exactly the feeling I got from the book. In terms of that just sheer awesomeness of indulging in properties in a new and different and unique way that still honored them, but then contributed to the storyline. So, but yeah, that being said, there is more than one quest. And what did you think of all the others. Now, the first one is a race sequence.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I thought that was really cool. There was points in this one where it was a little bit like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on. But it was never annoying. It was just one of those that this is definitely a movie you have to see more than once because you're going to miss a lot of shit just in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be cool to see all that. But it is kind of like a sensory overload of freaking licenses in the first quest. But it's cool. So you're like, all right, this is cool. And then you get Kong in there and you're like, hell yeah, Kong. Freaking little T-Rex shows up. You're like, hell yeah, little T-Rex. I liked it. It was cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat, man. I really enjoyed that. Definitely got me into the flow of things. Because I'll say this. If I had one criticism against the movie, it would be that it started with the narration. Now, it's kind of essential with how much you have to know before the quest starts. But I think the reason I wasn't 100% there at the beginning was probably because I read the book and I already knew what the fuck.
Yeah.
But instinctually, I knew that they could have probably done this in a much more visual way, communicated everything in a much more visual way. And I'll hook up into that later when we talk about the creator of the Oasis, this digital world in the movie. But yeah, I thought there could have been a much more natural way to communicate that. But I think really, if I had to pin something down, it was that I kind of didn't like the physical appearance of the guy playing Wade Watts. There was something about him that made me want to punch him in the fucking face.
Like the live action guy?
Yeah, the live action guy. You'd think it'd be the digital guy, his avatar.
He kind of looks like a fatter version of the guy who played Mr. Fantastic in the remake.
Yeah, kind of. He looks like a wormy.
In fact, I thought it was him,
wiener.
Only fatter.
Yeah,
yeah, I guess.
There was that seems trivial, but sometimes you just have that gut reaction to things. That was my gut reaction. This guy, I don't like this guy, and that's because Wade Watts in the book is so likable. You know that there was just something about him that I was like, I want to kill him. But yeah, I mean,
but voice-wise, the character.
Once he's in the Avatar, I'm like, please stay in the Avatar. But don't get me wrong. Weird. He earned his keep, and I'm being, of course, completely an asshole and superficial, and that's just that stupid nitpick. But yeah, I realized that there was a lot of information to get across, and don't get me wrong, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm just being a stickler for it. I do think there could have been a much more natural way to say it still, but I'll tie, like I said, I'll tie that back to the creator of the Oasis. At its core, and this was, I believe, a critics' review that they stuck all over the covers of the fucking book, that this movie, the book was Willy Wonka meets the Matrix. And there was some essential moments of the creator of the Oasis that were excluded that I thought would have been really neat to put in there to really give it that much more heart and meaning to what he was doing and intending, and really make the villains much more villainous. Because I thought the villains, IOI, which are spearheaded by a scenery-chewing motherfucker, came off as a little too campy. I thought they could have avoided that had they, included these sequences, especially the sequences with Simon Pegg's character. Oh God, I forgot his name.
Og.
Yes.
Or I know
they have an interchange, but they did. They don't get me wrong. They put enough in there, and I thought it would just been giving it a little bit more heart and really giving the chance for the villain not to be that big a campy scenery.
Yeah, they were pretty campy.
So yeah, that's a Spielbergism right there, because the villains in the book are a lot more serious. I mean, yeah, there's still IROC and stuff with like kind of the sense of humor and all that stuff, but you feel much more of a threat and menace to the idea of, even now with net neutrality and all that stuff, you feel that impending doom of freedom being shuttered.
I'll agree with you on that, because there is moments where they are really campy, especially the main guy. But there are also moments where they make it really serious, like where they bomb the stacks and all that shit. And it's a little bit weird. It does add more like urgency and like kind of like, oh, these guys are actually bad. But up to that point, you're kind of like, these little guys are evil.
Yeah.
And then they kill people, and you're like, oh shit, they're actually evil.
And that's kind of my only big point of contention, is that the villains were handled in a very Spielbergian sense, in the sense that
They're kind of like the agents in E.T.
Yeah, you don't really feel.
They're just there.
Oh, I mean, those are much more threatening than this guy.
Well,
You know, in terms of.
before they replaced their guns with
I
walkie-talkies.
mean, E.T. was all white and shit.
Yeah, he was.
But this guy was like super campy, and I felt they could have done a much more serious thing with him. But that does not take away from the enjoyment of this picture. You know, I just had to go with the fact that he was a little campy scenery chewer, and that's it. And you know, it was a lot more comedy around him.
I kind of really
That's
liked
fine.
his little avatar. It was like an extreme Clark Kent.
exaggerated fucking.
The shit was insanely exaggerated look with like really plasticky look. I do have a question because I haven't read the book yet, and that is
And you should, by the way, because there are a lot of fucking different. Let me point before you ask the question. One more thing I want to point out about the book that I greatly enjoyed was that it does come off kind of like almost like a whodunit, you know, detective novel at times in terms of how they're solving the quests. And you see that in the movie,
Yeah,
them trying to figure it out, but
it's
it's you know, it's abbreviated
it's
for a
pretty
movie.
quick, yeah.
So in the book, you kind of get them feeling out what this is and cobbling it together. It's so well done that you feel kind of like an aha moment with them every time, and you're like, damn, that's cool. You feel like you figured it out, even though really you didn't figure shit out.
Yeah.
I think that was lacking in the movie. I didn't ever feel like, yeah, they figured it out, or I
Yeah,
figured
it
it
was
out
more
with them.
about those quests.
Yeah, but I mean, it's understandable with the movie. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was wondering if IROC had more of a big part in the book because he's barely in the movie and he's mostly just there like for comedy. And I was wondering if they cut him because of the whole T.J. Miller thing recently, or if that's just how he is in the book.
Yeah, it's essentially what he is. He's a gun for hire. I'd say they cut some stuff and added some stuff. He's, you know, he's essentially where he's at. But yeah, all right. I wouldn't say
It wasn't like
it's
it's
not
just how
critical.
he is,
Yeah.
because it seemed like when he appears, it seems like he's gonna be an important part, and then he's just kind of like a side character.
Yeah.
And I found that a little weird, and I was wondering if it was because of the whole T.J. Miller.
It might,
thing.
you know, yeah, that might have definitely done something, which makes you wonder about Deadpool too. But
Yeah.
probably we'll see this by the time this comes out. So why am I even saying that?
I don't know.
Future.
We've
That's
seen
where we're
Deadpool
at.
2, and it's good.
But,
or it's bad.
Whichever one applies, that's the one we're going with.
Yep.
Anyway, let's talk about the characters and the actors portraying them. I already just claimed my disdain for the guy playing Wade Watts. But what did you think of the cast here? Anybody you didn't like? Anybody you did like a lot over the others, etc.?
I was a little iffy on H for a while because I was like, man, he's kind of a wiener. But then the little reveal, I was like, oh, okay, his wienerness kind of makes sense. So ultimately, I ended up liking him quite a bit. The villain's a little camp master, freaking chewing the scenery, but I kind of like that. And I haven't read the book, so I didn't have that comparison. I don't think anybody really sucked that I can think of. I guess the guy's henchwoman, kind of like she didn't really do much. Didn't really do anything for me. I think the biggest selling point though is the little dynamic between the little team with in the Oasis and outside of it,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that really shines in the movie. That's the thing I really liked.
Yeah, and that was what was most important in the book. You know, just feeling these characters come together, put aside what they think is normal, and decide that them as a unit is what is normal, and they're beneficial to each other. They find relationships in each other. They find friendship. All that stuff is intact in the movie. So I think everybody did a really good job of that. And despite my hatred of how fucking the guy, I don't remember his name, the guy playing Wade Watts, how he looks. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but I hate that. But yeah, he did a fine job. I just wished he looked different.
All right.
H, you know what? I was kind of on the fence about H. You know, H is pretty cool in the book. The way she was portrayed in Avatar form. I was kind of like, man, I don't know about this H portrayal here. You know,
Wiener.
Not so much that it was just something that didn't gel with me, and I was kind of getting that you know, kind of like almost like pseudo racist vibe from it. Like, man,
Yeah,
this is a
I
caricature.
kind
Might as
of
well
get
fucking
that,
put
yeah.
him in mammy pain at this point.
all right.
You know, but when they did the reveal, which of course I was aware of, that actress is, I'm being totally biased with this fucking shit. That actress is from a season series on Netflix, which I fucking love. And she's not a particularly great actress, but she's cool. So I was like, all right, I'm cool with that. I can gel with this.
All right.
So I guess H would be my low point, besides the campy ass villain. But yeah, I mean that's me being super nitpicky and overly superficial. Everybody was pretty much solid and on point. I really special shout out to Simon Pegg and the guy who created the Oasis, whose name I don't fucking know for some reason. I think they did a fantastic job. Wonderful. I love them. So yeah, that was awesome. I think everybody did fantastic in this. My question to you is, what did you think of their avatar appearances? Any avatar? Because I know some avatars can be cringy level shit in real life, or I should say, in real life out here, but in the game, you know what I mean. But anyway,
Guardians avatars.
Yeah, Guardians avatars are horrible. What did you think of their avatar versions? Any avatar that didn't quite?
This was a thing where I was really like, I didn't like the designs of them in the trailers, and I was kind of that way in the beginning of the movie. But I do like that they poke fun of it, like he had the little wavy effects in his hair, and then they're like, oh, come on, dude, that's freaking lame. Ultimately, I kind of grew into liking him. The only one I thought was a little weird was H.
I agree with him.
I wasn't super sold on him. Everybody else kind of worked for me, though. So, you know what? That little Asian kid with the weird little legs, I thought that was weird. The the praying mantis legs. But other than that, everything looked cool.
Yeah, but I think ultimately that's kind of how it works in video games. If you see somebody else's avatar, you're usually like at first like, serious? But if you play more and more with them,
it's like parts of the character in...
Yeah, and it kind of goes hand in hand with like, D&D or some shit like that. I mean, yeah, you're seeing a jackass like you in front of you, but their character, as they're portraying it, as they're explaining it, as you get to... You just kind of, You get it. You get why they did it that way, and it becomes normal. And I think you're right. As the movie progressed, it just became who they were. It just makes
sense,
Yeah, so that worked. That worked for me anyway. Now, the effects are the big one here, and they're all over the fucking place.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is a movie in which, like, we got to start questioning, when do you consider something just fully animated?
Mm-hmm.
Because this movie, once they're in the Oasis, it's just CG.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was performance capture when it came to mocap and all that shit. But it's just CG. It was basically a half animated movie, half live action.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big part, the effects.
And your thoughts?
I thought they worked. A lot of it looked cool, really cool. And I kind of liked how, despite the fact that it was a buttload of effects, there was moments of silence where people are just kind of hanging out or doing their little sleuthing around. And it's still in effect, so you're like kind of like, oh, okay. It's kind of like an animated movie where there isn't any action and people are just kind of hanging around. It lends realism to the characters.
Yeah, I think. Well, to put it in better words, I think what you're trying to say is it gave a sense of credibility to the Oasis.
Yeah, it felt like a real place. Yeah,
it definitely felt like a place that they went.
Like there's these massive,
was a second life.
There's
for
these
them.
Massive areas, and then there's this like social areas. People are just hanging around. Mm-hmm. That actually exists in games.
Yeah.
So it was kind of neat to see that.
Yeah, man. The effects in this were. I mean, was there a second that wasn't in effect once they entered the Oasis? No. Question is. Was there anything you didn't like? What was your favorite effect? I'm going to tell you right now, I already said it. The Shining sequence was the best. I know there were bigger effects in this, but I was just astonished. I can't say that enough. Astonished how amazing that looked.
I'll agree with you on that, because that recreation of the hotel alone, it was like, how the hell did they do this? And the fact that you've already seen a movie that's like basically impossible to make 10 years ago, for a movie like that to have a moment in it that makes you go, how did they do that? Despite the fact that you're seeing an entire freaking movie of that moment, is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So I will say that's probably the best effect. That being said, some runners up. Little Mecha Godzilla was pretty rad. Seeing the Spartans charge in, the Halo Spartans, it is a little unfortunate that the first time we see Spielberg's Halo, despite the fact that series has been announced for eons, is in another movie, but it was still pretty cool to see Spartans in live action. The Mad Ball was pretty cool. Although apparently there's 2 other Mad Balls that we didn't catch. I just saw the Dust Brain, which was in the middle of the screen, so it was kind of hard to miss. All the little homages were freaking really cool. Like normally they would be cringy or there would be a little too much, but they did them right. They're in the background, like you see the Battletoads in the background. They never stop on them and go, "Look, this is a Battletoad from the Battletoads."
Now there are moments where we do get a more highlight on this. One of my favorites, yes, the Mechagodzilla, of course, is fucking cool. But then, we have one of our supporting characters finally use his item to turn into a Gundam and go up again. That was fucking awesome. And I know our friend Monk would have gone gaga over that.
Yeah, there was actually a guy in front of us, though, when that happened. He went, "Oh, shit!"
Yeah.
And there were several moments with those guys in front of us who seemed very uninterested in the beginning.
Probably because of Wade Watts.
It kind of hooked them.
Yeah, man. Another one for me that was cool was Chucky, which I had seen in the trailers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that's gonna be a cringe moment, but it wasn't. It was actually handled really well.
I kind of like how he was like an item, like a weapon.
And I like how they portrayed his killing spree when they cut to iOS and
It's just everybody.
All the Sixers are fucking going out. That was awesome. That was really cool. There was a lot of moments like that in this movie. Where, again, short of being jaw droppers, they were just super fucking cool. Cool meter is off the fucking chart in a lot of sections of this movie. So the effects, I think, what we're saying here is throughout work exceptionally well. There is that Spielbergian fucking digital map painting look that was in BFG and in Crystal Skull, but here it works. Because it's a digital world, so it's supposed to look fake as fuck. So
that's another thing. Even if the effects have been a little bit like iffy, it's supposed to be a game, so it has that like built-in little like excuse or whatever. But thankfully, they don't suck. They're cool. The Iron Giant was cool.
Yeah,
I hadn't even seen the freaking movie, and that was cool.
That was neat. That was one of the first things that came out. I remember when first information started coming out about the movie. I was like, oh, the Iron Giant's gonna be in this because he's not in the book. So that was neat. The score. Let's talk about the score in this real quick. I thought the score was pretty fucking awesome. Now, it might be hard for you to notice certain elements in this fucking movie because there's so much going on visually. I don't know if you noticed. Did you notice the score?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man. I thought the score was fucking awesome. I'm glad John Williams didn't do the score because it wouldn't have worked with this type of material. It works. And then on top of that, it's score within score. It's a meta score because you get the score to the movie and then you get these little
soundtrack
cues from different soundtracks accordingly. And of course, once again, The Shining takes the cake for me because fuck, that was just awesome. I can't stop talking about that. It was awesome. But anyway,
I will say that the score in my book had several good moments, but overall it wasn't amazing. But it did have really badass moments, so I can't shit on it. It was a good score. Interestingly enough, done by the guy that did the Avengers. So it went from one boring ass score to at least one that was kind of cool. My personal favorite was the Godzilla score moment. That was cool.
And Samoa Joe came out, so Rosie came out. That didn't happen. But anyway, let's talk about the action real quick in this flick. That kind of goes hand in hand with the effects, and it was just said that it kicked ass. So, long story short, the action kicked ass. Yay or nay?
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Anything else that stands out? I know we already mentioned kind of some of our favorites, but action-wise,
that Mad Ball, though. I can't get over that Mad Ball, dude. He showed up. Yeah, I mean, there's like pretty much every. This is the thing about this movie. Pretty much every big set piece has a moment that kicks ass. So to list them would be kind of hard. We already told you some of our favorites, but I will say this. And it is important to the current subject. I said in our Avengers review that I had 0 tingly spine moments. I had way more tingly spine moments in this movie than I did with Avengers.
Yeah.
Like every other scene, I was like, oh shit. And yes, a lot of it was seeing something on the screen that I'm used to in games. I will admit to that, but it was still really cool. And the fact that they did it in a way that isn't cringe was cool. Because you could just put shit up there and we'll be like, okay. But they did it in a cool way that hit my little tingly spots.
You know how much fucking tingle I had run up my old spine? That shiny moment?
Dude, that shiny moment was great! Woo! The little hedge mace, and then you have little Jack coming after him, and then the big ass hag.
The only thing that would have... I'm going to say it this way. My spine would have broken with tingles had we actually had Jack Nicholson appear, like, physically.
Yeah.
His fucking face in the shot.
Dude, at a point, I was expecting it.
Yeah, me too.
But then I was like, no, he wouldn't do. He freaking charged $2 million to have his likeness in a freaking toy.
It would have been a Brando moment.
But it was still like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's
the
only
fact that it made me go, he might show up.
Yeah, impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean
That hag though.
spine tingle. Yeah, the hag got more screen time than hags have ever gotten in a long time.
Massive hag too.
So yeah, mega hag no less. So hags are in this, but anyway, yeah, just on the hagometer,
Yeah,
this is getting a
pretty
10
great.
on the hagometer. Anyway, we've already mentioned the visual and aesthetic look of this. It all goes hand in hand with the digital world that's being created. Final thoughts and final score on this movie. Yeah,
I really liked it. Like, I'm definitely gonna buy it on Blu-ray. This is definitely a movie you have to see more than once just to take in all of the little treats they put in there for the viewer. Again, the characters and the story told by the characters helps the, you know, if they had just had, like you said, the frosting and the cake sucked, it wouldn't have been a good movie. But that cake was delicious, and then they put some of that little frost on there, and you're like, woo!
not only that, they threw some fucking sprinkles on that bitch.
Some shining sprinkles. You got that old hags in there. So yeah, I was actually really impressed. I wasn't expecting this movie to be great because Spielberg, as of late, and again, it didn't seem to have a major splash after it came out. People liked it, but it was kind of like it just kind of disappeared. And I wasn't expecting much, but I was really surprised. I gotta say, I kind of liked it better than Avengers. So on a personal scale, I gotta give it a freaking 9.5, maybe even a 10, just for that shining.
Yeah, the Shining sequence gets a 10. The movie gets a solid 9. Wade Watts, man, they need
0.
to go back, digitally replace that fucking actor. The fuck's wrong with his fucking appearance? But yeah, man, I really enjoyed this movie. It was a fucking blast. Spine-tingling moments galore. Shockingly, this had to have been walking a thin line the whole time.
Yeah.
Because I was never not afraid that it was going to go over and become cringe. But it never happened. It never happened. Not even with the scenery chewing bad guy, which is why I'm knocking a few points off of it. But, you know, or mini points, I guess. Because does get a solid 9. That hag and shiny sequence, though, gets a 10. Yeah.
Madball.
Far exceeded my expectations in terms of an adaptation. If you're okay with changes that make sense, then this will please you if you've read the book. Although I can imagine some people out there were not happy with certain of the changes, though mostly they are aesthetic.
Yeah.
So I will say that. I was pleased. I do encourage anyone that hasn't read the book, that did see this movie and enjoyed it, to go read the book, because there's a lot more to be enjoyed there. They didn't restrict themselves to mainly WB properties and then some others that came in from, you know,
Yeah,
other
that
sources.
being said, there was actually a lot of
Oh, yeah.
non-WB stuff.
Yeah,
in
there definitely was.
I was expecting it just to be like, oh, Batman will show up, but no, they went all out with it.
Yeah.
But there is some limits,
Yeah,
obviously.
and there was some properties, obviously, that they couldn't get from the book, or they weren't willing to get, or what have you, that are still intact there for you to read in the book. And, of course, there's variant aspects to the quest, etc., that are still in the book that I think should be experienced. And, of course, Wade Watts not played by a hideous-looking fuck that I want to strangle because of his face.
I did kind of want a Lord of the Rings appearance
That
of
would've
some
been neat.
sort, because they do own it. Fortunately, it didn't happen. Anyway, that was my input. So you like it?
I'm just going to say that Jeff should have been in it. And if you're wondering who Jeff is,
Goddamn
it's,
it.
it's our guest. Anyway, it's been Ahab. That's the Goon Tick. That's Jeff.
Oh, I do want to say, as a closing statement, that the writer has said that he is writing a sequel for the book.
Oh.
And saying that he said that if the movie is successful, there would be a sequel for the movie, though he doesn't know if Steven Spielberg will come back, because apparently Spielberg himself said this was the third hardest movie he's ever made in his life. which I can kind of see because an old geezer tackling something that must have required a lot of freaking green screen and mocap suits.
I can imagine.
So yeah, if we get a sequel, he might not come back, but you never know.
Maybe we'll get somebody better. And I'm saying that I love Spielberg. Again, I reiterate, This is a miracle movie because that old Spielberg is gone.
Yeah.
We get drama Spielberg now, and he's great at that. But anyway, I'm glad this one worked out.
And hopefully they do make a sequel.
Hopefully. And hopefully they won't rush it into production and ruin it a la Lost World, Jurassic Park. The fuck, man? That shit sucked. Anyway. I'm saying Spielberg's not always great. But the point is, I may have...
yeah, that is a Spielberg movie.
Yes, fucking licked, man. I may have. That's the Goon Tick. We're out. Let us know what you think about this pick. Hit like, share, subscribe, and notification buttons. Bye.
Movies, music, story times, all kinds of shit for you. Anything goes inside the night, from a couple of corpulent dudes. Movies, music, story times, all kinds of shit for you.